So do you want like the easy question first, or you want something more introspective?
I don't know. Just pick whatever, you know.
Well,
I mean,
it depends on
it
it.
is easy. You know, just
Okay,
start
easy
with.
for me would be like easing into a conversation,
Hmm.
or do you want like something that's really going to make you think and have to go like,
Let's start with easy.
okay, what would you say is the key to long-lasting friendship?
That's easy.
That's easy. That's the easiest one I have.
Okay.
I
The
got
key to long lasting.
Yeah, because I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I stopped you earlier. You were going to tell a story about how
Mm-hmm.
long we've known each other.
Mm-hmm.
The last time you visited, and I told you to wait because I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
get it on camera.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you pick up right there. Like, how
Mm-hmm.
long have we known each other,
Mm-hmm.
and what would you say is the key to it lasting so long?
Mm-hmm. Well, I would definitely say it's really interesting how our friendship just first of all started because typically, like in our situation, of course, I had that relationship with your family member, and then that split off. And a lot of times, when you split off with that person, you split off with the family as well.
Hmm.
But then you reached out to me, and then there were no cell phones.
Yeah,
There was no text.
it's
There was none of that
expensive.
stuff. There was
Yeah.
just like literally like you couldn't even call somebody when cell phones did come, into play. You couldn't call them before 9 p.m. without paying a whole bunch of money. So this is
Hmm.
a totally different time.
Totally different time.
And you reached out to me out of the blue, and suggested like, hey, things are kind of happening like this. I don't know how you would ever, whatever. And because of that, because I wanted to try to see what could happen with that, I wound up coming here and staying with you because I had nowhere else to
So
stay.
I think you probably need to give few more details.
Give me a few more. Okay,
Yeah,
so
they
me
know.
being engaged to
Yeah,
your
so he was
cousin.
engaged to
I
my
was formally
cousin.
engaged to be married to your cousin,
Yeah.
and quite honestly and frankly, like just head over heels in love.
Hmm.
Like this was everything to me, and I just didn't see how that was gonna. Well, at some point or another, things just happened, and we wound up splitting up or whatever, and I wasn't totally off. I still kind of saw it as being my future or whatever. So then when you reached out to me, it kind of triggered some stuff like, hey, like this is my opportunity. Maybe I should just investigate and see what's going
Hmm.
on. Um, and
And so you asked me the last time we broached the subject, why did I reach out? Like
hmm yeah,
what prompted me to reach out?
and can we say this is like 90? This was 1998, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
because I was going to get out of the Marines that year,
Mm-hmm.
and she and I had split up in, I think probably 97. I think we split up in 97 because that was when a friend of mine also got involved with your sister.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It was like right after that. And then a little space of time. And then I knew I was getting out of Marines. So I was like, that was what I wanted to do,
Yeah,
be with her.
yeah.
So then you reached out to me around 1998. So I say that just to kind of give an idea. Like I'm asking you to see if you can remember what happened then. And that was almost 30 years ago.
Yeah.
But,
Well,
what do
I
you
think
remember?
I liked you for one. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I didn't like you or feel like you were good for our family, I would have let it be what it was going to be.
Mm.
But like when I met you, I think we hit it off, and we'll get into that a little bit more later, I guess. But like, I felt like you were unique in that you matched my wits, and I was the kind of person who didn't have a lot. I had a lot of friends. I didn't have a lot of people who could challenge me intellectually. And I'm not saying it to boast,
Mm-hmm.
but like I've always been like, for lack of better words, like the teacher in my relationships. When I met you, it was like a meeting of the minds. You
Mm-hmm.
know, where we
Absolutely.
could go. You know how
Absolutely. It's
we
still
go
going.
back and forth for like 2 hours, 3 hours
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, talking about everything.
Mm-hmm.
And like I think I valued that. You know what I'm saying? And even like it would even we didn't always disagree in the conversations that we would have. Like you would push back on some things I would say, I would push back on, but I
Mm-hmm.
respected the fact that you were speaking from a reasoned position and not from an emotional position. You know what I'm saying? Like the stuff that we argued about, it was because you researched and came to a different conclusion. That's different than somebody saying, well, I just don't like what you said. You know what I'm saying? And so for me, even though you were engaged to my cousin, it was almost like we were engaged, and not like romantically, but relationally, spiritually, cerebrally, we were engaged. And so I felt like I need to tell this guy what's going on. Even if they don't end up together, I owe it to him to let him know what's happening on this end. And I wanted you as well to like not be tied down to a dream or something that could potentially happen. I wanted to set you free. I wanted to free you to pursue other interests if that's what you wanted and what God wanted, you know what I'm saying, as opposed to you being, I guess, arrested in the possibility of a marriage.
But all that is, oh my God, you just said, like, there's so much in there. Just piggybacking up on what you just said, even, like, in many ways, there was a type of salvation that took place for me, even that, like, you're reaching out to me. And I don't think that can take place without that meeting, that true meeting, you know what I'm saying? You have to be able to clear your vision of differences, or, you know, all kinds of personal desires, wants, whatever, to see another person. You know what I'm saying? You have to get rid of the projections. You have to get rid of the prejudice. You have to get rid of all this stuff in order to actually see them and to actually want what's best for them, to the point where it's not even wanting what's best for them so much as it's personal.
That's
you know?
right. That's right.
That person is no longer other.
That's right.
It's, you know, it's like a type of you that you're caring for.
Yeah.
And in so many ways, that was like, you know, that just saved me in a sense. You know what I'm saying? Like coming here, that helped ease me through the process a lot.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times when you do have some type of, you know, breaking away of some sort, you're not just, you know, you're losing that person, so to speak, but you're also losing everything that came with that person, which makes the whole process just that much more difficult.
Right.
But then to, you know, okay, this is shifting, but I still, you know, I'm not losing this quality, valuable relationship here. And also, like, I don't know if you remember, later on when she got engaged and I met her fiance, I gave him a hug. He reached out to shake my hand. I was like, oh, hey, how are you doing? And later on in the car, because nobody knew what was going on inside. I was like tormented. But you did. You just quietly said while you were driving, you said, how you doing? And I was like, I'm dying inside, and he said, I know. That just being able to be seen, when you talk about what, you know, how are long-lasting relationships forged or whatever, first of all, I don't think you ever go in, like, I think when you go into a relationship of any sort with the intent of it being long, you've already distorted the process. Because you're no longer in the moment. You're no longer present. You're no longer seeing what's there, you know.
And we should treat every relationship like it's only going to last a day.
This is what we have.
And how much better would they be if we did that? Yeah.
And with that, not only is it not, you know, trying to create some kind of future for the relationship, but it's also, again, seeing that person in the moment. Because I was even thinking to myself, and I do it quite often, you know, when I'm meeting someone that I know, or a friendship, whatever, I remind myself that this person is not what I knew them to be last time I saw them. You know? Yeah. So I'm hanging out with Shedrach, but if I only know you as Shedrach, then I'll never know you. I have to release that. You know what I'm saying? I have to be open to see you as you are in this very moment. Because even though I just saw you a few weeks ago, you've had how much information has actually, you know, been exchanged in your brain and your mind and in your heart. How many other people have you met? How many foods have you eaten? How many things have happened that have caused you, this flowing being, to just evolve into something totally different? But because I recognize a pattern that's shaping itself as this, I come here and I project all that I understand of that pattern onto you, and that's doing you a disservice, and it's not allowing me the opportunity to actually get to know you as you are. It's just me just perpetuating the pattern and loving that pattern saying I love you.
Shedrach Rowry Creative Content.
After the breakup, we forged our own relationship.
Absolutely.
We stayed in touch, not only like through the phone, but like you come to my house and stay weeks at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Like you end up being my son's godfather.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, how do you, like, how does that feel to you? You know, I don't know how to phrase the question, but there's a question in there somewhere.
Okay. How does it feel?
Well, how does it like land on you that we went beyond a breakup
Mm-hmm.
that should have, and in most cases would have, ended any semblance of cordiality?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think it's a few different things. Some parts of me wonders, sometimes we're so focused on one thing, and my mother said this to me years ago, I remember, because I was pursuing one thing, like career-wise, and she saw this skill and talent I had with photography, for instance, that I wasn't maybe investing as much in, but it was there, and then she just said something that, and at first it triggered me, and it like pricked me, like almost I felt like she was discouraging me from what I was pursuing.
Mm-hmm.
Like she didn't in my mind I was translating it almost as, am I not good enough for this, or you don't believe in me? But she saw something else, and I feel like sometimes we just so focus on one thing, and there's this whole other magnificent thing that's just there, that's forming, that if you don't step back and zoom out for a moment and just see that, hey, like this had its purpose, and maybe maybe its purpose was not for you to be,
Mm-hmm.
maybe that was never supposed to be, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But simultaneously, I'm ignoring this other thing that's just bursting with energy and creative powers and everything. And then, to be able to zoom out and to not let this destroy this too, and just let it naturally flow into something else, I think that's powerful,
Yeah.
And I think of a story where someone, and also just, taking your broken pieces and creating something else, out of it. It's like, it's not, just because it's broken doesn't mean it's no longer any good. And the story that I think about, I forget how I'm kind of paraphrasing, but he's talks about how there was this guy who was a potter or something, and he would never sell his product, and so he got frustrated one time, and he just like throws it down, and it breaks and shatters. Somebody else gets it, and they got some gold, and they use the gold to fuse the pieces back together, and then all of a sudden it's sold.
Yeah.
Because people appreciated the brokenness that was there, that was also brought together by the gold. And I know like the story is a little different than what I'm saying, because I've heard it once or twice, and so I'm adding my own little thing to it. But it kind of feels like that for me too, because I was definitely broken.
Yeah.
I felt shattered at the moment.
Yeah.
But then when you start fusing, seeing and looking and seeing how all the little, the liquid gold was in there, and saying, okay, well, let's bring this part together. And then, now you had this friendship, and not just friendship, but family. Like, you know what I'm saying?
We knew each other before my kids were born. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how deep it is.
Yeah. Before you met Craven.
Yeah.
I knew you, and then, not long after you did meet her, but yeah, like we were kids.
Yeah. And it's crazy because maybe you can speak to this as well. How did we maintain the connection? Because you don't even live in Texas. You live everywhere. You know what I'm saying? Literally everywhere. And we'll get into that a little bit later. And we didn't talk every day. So how do we keep this growing and flourishing?
That's a good question.
That's actually a great question.
Because like I was saying, we were communicating. I know for me, during that time, since I was traveling a lot, I had a pay card. No cell phone at the time. I had a pay card that I would add money to so I could call people. So I know a lot of details lost on me. I think that,
Me too.
It's like, how did we actually, but I do know that there was definitely a genuine, authentic love there. It had to have been.
It had to. Yeah.
It had to have been.
Because we never talked on the phone. I'm not a
No.
phone talker. So I know I didn't call you.
It was just, I think it was too, like, even without being able to articulate it, because words just, I like talking. I think talking is cool. But words,
Yeah.
we just given so much energy to words to where now if you can't explain it, it's not real.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't fit it into an acronym, somehow or another, it's not as valid as something that you can. And all of a sudden, as soon as you can fit into a word, and we're trying so hard to fit this flowing life into abstractions and concepts and ideas. But when you're actually doing it, none of those things are present. They don't mean anything.
Right.
The only thing that has meaning is words.
Yeah.
And words are describing other words. So trying to fit what we experienced into some type of word.
Yeah.
Or
It
just doesn't do it.
Nah.
But we were actually living a real life, that energy was there,
Yeah.
I know I saw you and I know you saw me. And that's important.
Yeah.
Without being able to articulate it.
Yeah.
I know that when I go to this place, this person cares about me.
Yeah.
And even though you abused my Sphinx,
Oh, Lord.
you were very abusive towards my, some things that were dear to my heart.
This is true.
And you were totally inconsiderate to my
Well,
emotions.
I was trying to help you.
And
I was trying to
you
help
were trying to
you,
help me, of course.
Because, So should we tell them
Well,
about
Sphinx. If you follow comics, there's a cat that's called, I don't know what they call him, but that's not what his name is. I bought a stuffed
ugly
version of that cat. I wish I had Sphinx.
I
might
wish
have to
you
show
did
a
too.
version of
Okay,
Sphinx,
maybe you send me a
so you
picture and
can
I'll
see
put it on the
Sphinx.
screen.
I've known Sphinx longer than I've known you.
Tragically, yes.
And like you,
Yes.
and I would bring Sphinx with me.
But he looks like you've known him longer too. He smells like it too.
You ain't even smelled him.
Oh, trust. Oh, trust.
Oh, trust.
I almost
really?
gave him a bath.
Look, I mean, so Shedrach would do things with Sphinx like he would write ransom notes. He would hide my stuffed cat and have ransom notes, or Sphinx would be hanging by a noose somewhere in his house. And I don't know why he had such animosity towards Sphinx. Maybe he felt like that got between our friendship.
Well, no, I was trying to see, like,
I don't know what was happening.
I thought it was a joke.
You thought what was a joke?
You and him. So what I was doing was like testing your emotional connection to him.
By hanging him.
By hanging him,
And
by hiding him, by
kidnapping
him, by
Call it what you will. Call it
punch.
what
I
you
used to
will.
punch him and that.
When I wasn't watching?
Yeah,
Why would you, what would you get out of punching a stuffed cat while I'm not watching?
I'm just trying to see what you made of.
That's something you should probably look into.
Okay.
Just trying to see,
But wait, I should look into why you cared I was punching him.
No, I care now because I'm concerned.
Well,
as to
you would
why
have cared then.
I would have cared then.
So
Again,
that's
but
more
I think it would have been,
concerning.
no, but I think the care would have again been a type of reflection of what I'm experiencing now, and that what is the emotional state of this being who has this much concern about a stuffed animal that when they're by themselves they're punching it. That's concerning when I care about somebody. Like
Somebody. See, you said somebody. That's concerning to me because it's not a somebody.
Well, no, I'm talking about you. I was concerned about you.
Okay.
The emotional well-being of
Is
you.
Sphinx? Is Sphinx or somebody? Let's
We're
just
not talking about that
get
right
it all
now.
out in the open.
We're not talking about that right
Is
now.
he
We talk
a somebody? Would you consider him somebody?
less defined body. Is it a body of collective?
Let's
like,
define
what's the
body.
difference? What's the difference between this is a type of body, the cup. It's
You
a
see
glass,
how he's
right?
wiggling around
It's
the
a type
question?
of body.
He's wiggling.
You got a body of water. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what are we talking about when
Okay,
we say
let's
body?
talk about body.
So
Let's talk
what's
about-
the difference between shaping this stuffed animal into this figure? A figure, body. They're almost like interchangeable. Figure and body, right? So I have this figure.
Let's take body
So
of
it is
water.
some figure,
Let's
some
take
body.
body of water.
Okay.
It's living. It's moving. It's nurturing things under its surface. Would you say that's the equivalent of Sphinx?
I would say that everything on some level is nurturing something.
See how you...
Is it not? Is it not? Are there not organisms living on this very table right
It's
now?
Sphinx an organism.
Are there? Is it
It's Sphinx
okay?
an
Even I'm gonna say
organism.
object. Is this object right?
Okay.
Does it contain organisms that are feeding off of
It
it?
contains, and Sphinx did contain organisms. I will give you that. He contained mites and ticks and dust mites and bugs. He did contain organisms, but was he himself?
This is funny how it just transitioned from us talking about a good friendship and relationship.
Well, I'm
to
still talking about
this type
friendship.
No, because I feel like
Because
you're
you
being
have a
little bit
friendship
more-
with a stuffed
I feel
animal.
like you're being a little insensitive
No,
towards Sphinx.
we talking about relationships, friendships. You have a friendship with a stuffed animal.
It's not a friendship.
What is it?
It is a type of relationship.
I bet you
maybe.
know what.
This guy is working my nerves. Let's forward a bit. 20 minutes later.
I don't you?
Yes.
I
know
bet you know what he's
exactly
doing
where he
right
is.
now.
Unless some kind of
If
something
he could
happened,
talk,
yeah.
you would call him right now.
If he could talk, I probably wouldn't be here talking with you.
See, and that's what I mean. And that's what I mean.
And who's to say he can't talk?
What would you tell somebody out here who's looking to enhance their friendships, or maybe even like to be a friend? Like, what type of practical things do they need to be equipped with?
You know, just a lot of cliches that people use and stuff, but some of them do actually have some, I think, validity to them, where people talk about, you know, even self-love. I have my whole idea about this whole approach to self-love, or should I say Sean has its own idea, right, of this idea of the approach to self-love. But there's just to get into it really quick, there's something to only being able to give what you have. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't meet you if I'm scattered in myself. If I'm, like Jesus said, a house divided against itself can't stand. And we often think about that in relationships or in community or in a church or whatever. But what about this house? And if this is divided against itself, then it can't stand. And if this is all scattered and everything, and I'm trying to bring that to whoever else, I'm bringing them a bunch of scattered pieces. You know? And so, like, I think it's important to, first of all, just recognize my wholeness, be whole, recognize my wholeness, and be, ready to present that to whoever and whatever without discrimination. You know, like if I go to you with the intent of being your friend instead of just going to whoever, if I say I'm going to be Shedrach's friend, now I'm sitting there investing all this kind of stuff and trying to be Shedrach's friend as opposed to just being a friend, being a friend to myself, and then presenting the friend that I am to myself to the different ones that I encounter. Then when I present that, then the story will start to tell itself. That person, if they're presenting themselves as a friend, then it'll just start to happen without, forcing it, and trying to manipulate it. The thing about friendships and relationships, whatever, is like, first of all, life itself is relationship, right? Like, you only know yourself because of other. If there was nothing other, you couldn't know self. So that's why I say my whole ideas of self-love or my approach may be a little different, because sometimes I think that we approach self-love as something that's an isolated experience where you're an island and you pull yourself away and you pamper yourself and all that kind of stuff. And while I understand that these things, may be involved in the whole experience of self-love, self-love is not isolated from me loving everything that is other, because other is what's making self. You know what I'm saying? So I think in a true friendship or in a growing a friendship, I have to acknowledge what this is and see what this is, and I have to present what this is. And also in seeing what this is, I can't see it without seeing what that is. Like it's flip sides of the same coin. And it's not even cause and effect. It's literally like back and front. No matter how much you rub away the back, it's still the back until and then as soon as you get rid of the back, the front disappears simultaneously. So it's like that's the same thing as self and other. Like it only exists together as the same thing. And so I have to see, in order to see self, I have to see other. In order to see other, I have to really truly be aware of self, right? And I think that that's important in a friendship, because I think that what we're doing a lot is we're just we're following formulas and systems and rules and numbers, step one to being a friend is do this. Step one is that. Step two is that. Step three, instead of being aware
Yeah.
of self and other.
Yeah.
You know, why would I strike you if I wouldn't strike myself?
That's good, man. And something you said earlier made me think of this real practical principle is that to be a friend, we have to be a friend first.
Be a
We
friend.
got to
yeah.
be a friend. Yeah. You have to do what it takes to be a friend or to have the attributes and qualities of a good friend before you get a friend. Or you can learn on the spot too, but you have to at least have some semblance of it before you enter that relationship. And like you said, you know, like not being abusive to yourself is friend material. Being consistent is friend material. Being compassionate, being concerned. You know, all these things contribute to good friends, but I think you begin working on those things prior to the human friendship. You know what I'm saying? Which makes it easier to just exist in that relationship.
Yeah, so I think listening is probably one of the most paramount or whatever
Yeah,
processes of friendship of any type.
I agree, man.
Listening, and I don't mean with your ears only either, like listening. There have been times where we haven't talked necessarily, where there was a little quiet moment. Even like I said, that time with your, you know, when you said, how you feeling? And I was like, I'm dying inside pretty much. You were listening without me having to say anything, but you weren't listening to words. There was an energy that you just, or we'll say, instead of listening, we'll use the word perceiving. So being able to be perceptive, or I don't even say be able to be, because that almost makes it seem like you have to work towards something, but just we are perceptive, period. Before words, we're perceptive. Before thinking, we're perceptive. You know, thinking is often just narrating what you perceived already, you know? And so I think in friendship, that whole perception process, that's it.
And just to echo what you're saying, I thought about Job and the calamity that he experienced and how he had 3 or 4 friends to come through, quote unquote. But the one he really resonated with was the one who listened. He listened for days, didn't say a word, just listened to him. So I think that's something to be said about that.
And you a listener.
Yeah, well, I listen.
I know you're
I
a
listen.
listener.
I
Let me tell you
listen
one
to
thing.
everything,
You know,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes I catch myself because I run my mouth. You know, I might as well be honest, right?
Yeah.
I could just sit here and talk, and I have to catch myself and say, wait a second. And I believe I'm a good listener too, because you know, I truly love, genuinely. But I think it's also important to be honest with myself when I'm not listening.
Yeah.
But I have recognized over the years that that's been something consistent with you, which is how you've been able to contribute so much, because you are listening. And you've always been, and I love this too, I'm going to say this, like, even though growing up, you know, in the church and the Christian, the doctrines, the this, that, and the other, your mind was never closed to listen. And it didn't necessarily need to be theology. It could be psychology or whatever, you know, it could be something that someone come from a perspective that's not necessary, but you would listen to that and you would balance it out with this and you would question.
Yeah.
And I've always seen that with you over the years, which is another reason why I think we've been able to relate. Because even though we come from different worlds and different backgrounds and some, you know, types of cultures, me being from Northeast, you being from, you know, Midwest, this is Midwest, right? Southwest, whatever we are.
Southwest. Yeah.
So you being from Southwest, there's some differences in everything and approaches and just, you know, I grew up being quick-tempered. You know, I'm ready to fight, you know, whatever, whereas you were way more laid back. So we had our differences, but I think both of us brought that listening, that, you know, that curiosity to the table, and that curiosity created its own thing.
Yeah. And I have to give credit for that part of me to my mom, to my grandparents. Like, they were always they taught us silently how to listen and to observe and to be curious and to read and read different materials. And so yeah, they would take chances on people, man. Like people that everybody else would write off, my grandfather would be attracted to him. You know what I'm saying? And I seen him as a child doing this kind of stuff. People who didn't have resources, who the church would say don't belong here. They smell bad. They whatever. They clothes ain't washed. Like he would seek them out and befriend them. And so I seen him do that kind of stuff, man. And so
that triggers a question for me.
Okay.
Like, okay, if true friendship is built on listening, how do you teach someone to actively listen?
Yeah, that's deep. I think this is going to sound like a conundrum, so to speak, but I think you learn by listening. You learn to listen by listening. Because even with me and my family members, like, they didn't sit me down to say, this is what you're supposed to do. I learned by being silent and watching. So essentially, I was listening to them do their thing. You know what I'm saying? And the more I listened to them listen, the better I became at it. And you probably can learn it as well other ways, but I'm just talking about me. Like,
well, that's learning it, but how do you teach? Or can you? Can you teach
well,
someone
I think
to
the
listen
teaching is in the
actively?
listening. I think the teaching, so I don't think it's a verbal teaching. I think the teaching is observation.
Is the listening.
Yeah.
So you are, if I'm hearing you correctly, like, so you learned listening by listening.
Yeah.
By listening to others listen.
Right.
And then you pass that along by listening to someone else.
Yes. And it was reinforced as a good commodity when you would leave a conversation with somebody listening to you. And assessing how you felt after that exchange made you want to do it for somebody else. You feel what I'm saying? And so you're learning even as people listen to you. You're learning to listen, if that makes sense.
Now I'm wondering, what would you call, because listening, again, we're using a word, right? So what is listening?
Yeah.
I mean, what is observation? What is listening? Because often when we think of listening, we just, like, I hear the words you're saying, I'm listening. You know, like, what exactly is listening? I could hear a sound out there, but am I listening to it?
Yeah.
Like, what is listening?
So I think listening is being invested in somebody else's story. And it's more than just hearing it. But like, as you're speaking, I'm visualizing myself with you going through those experiences, which makes me curious. And so even though I'm listening, if I ask a question to clarify something you're saying, for you, that feels like, they really listen to what I'm saying. But it's only because I'm invested in what you're talking about. I'm putting myself in your shoes.
Which means you have to lose yourself.
Yeah.
So you can't be bringing yourself to the situation, because if you're bringing it and you're putting you're experiencing it through them, but you're analyzing it based off of all of your preconceptions, then that's not true listening.
That ain't listening.
That's not actually being there present with that person. You have to, it reminds me of Jesus saying, take my yoke upon you and learn of me. Learning, you can only learn if you're listening, and that yoke puts you on the same plane. So it's literally like, I want you to perceive life the way I'm perceiving it. And so the only way you could do that is by listening.
Yeah.
And then once you do that, then every time I turn, you're turning. Every time I go forward, you're going forward, and we're going the same pace, and we're seeing, experiencing, and absorbing all the same stuff. And that's the only way to truly learn, right?
Yeah.
To be at the same time, same place,
That's
same.
Walking together.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's it, brother.
Oh, man.
Shedrach Rowry Creative Content.